We've all been in that meeting. You know, the one where the senior leader is going on and on about their vision and how great it is and how it's gonna revolutionize the game, and everyone's nodding in agreement and smiling, and in reality, nobody knows what's going on. And they're all looking at the middle manager to translate that to Monday morning. The middle manager might be the most important person in the room. The vision lives or dies in that moment. The senior leaders there, they say their vision with gusto and passion, and the expectation is that everybody's getting it. And I've worked for these kind of people before who get the shiny object syndrome and they're translating that vision, and ultimately someone has to execute it. Someone has to be the one to take those dreams and make them reality. And that person is often the middle manager. I once worked at a place where the senior leader, for the life of him, this executive director could not get his vision across. No matter how many times he said it, no matter how many different ways he said it, there was something that was lost in translation. And that left the middle managers to figure it out. And they would all go and do what they thought was best, do what they thought he wanted to do. And what it led to were a bunch of different departments working in the same place, but ultimately chasing different visions. Nobody talks about how difficult life is for the middle manager. A lot of our prescriptions and advice when it comes to work will hit the top level, senior leadership, hey, here's how you be a little better leader, or they'll hit the lower level, hey, here's what life looks like on the entry level perspective. But what about that person in the middle? That person who is absorbing stress from above and the stress from below. The person who carries the weight of the expectations, but also carries the frustrations of everybody else. There have been studies that have shown that middle managers feel more stress at work than everyone else. They sit in the middle as this buffer, as almost this like shock absorber for everything that is happening around them. Middle managers sit in this precarious position of having an incredibly difficult job that they're almost always unprepared for. Usually what organizations will do is they will promote the most technically savvy person, the person who's really good at their job. But being really good at your job from a technical standpoint is not the same as leading people. Leading people is a particular skill that people need to be trained and prepared for, that most places don't actually do that because they're just moving you up because you were good at your job. So now all of a sudden you move from being maybe a really good programmer to now being the person who's in charge of other programmers. And leading people is not that easy. And this is before we get into the complexity of managing across generations. In a multi-generational workplace, middle managers have to do more than execute tasks. Middle managers have to translate worldviews. Middle managers now have to look at a boomer senior leader's expectations and bring them down to the level of the Gen Z employee, and they often need to pass that through the millennial. It's not enviable. And if that manager doesn't have at least a baseline level of generational fluency, then those gaps become friction instead of becoming collaboration. You might be watching this and thinking to yourself, well, CJ, that whole like translating the gaps thing, those are soft skills and we need to develop those. No, that's the job. The job is being able to translate across generations, because as it stands, you've got 4 different cohorts working together and you got to figure out how to help them understand each other and move towards the same mission and vision and values. For the last few years, I've been watching senior leaders and middle managers mishandle this translation gap. You have Gen Z who they're often being blamed and having to shoulder that for their inability to understand what senior leadership might be saying. Senior leadership that's speaking a language that's inherent to their time and their place, and it's not translating to the millennial middle manager who's struggling to convey it down. All of this All of this is the result of a mishandling of what's happening in front of us, a mishandling of understanding who is in the room. Now, I've watched middle managers make 3 key mistakes in this position. The first one is middle managers find themselves absorbing anxiety rather than processing it. The frustrations that come from being the person who's the translator means that they have to get the anxieties from above them and from below them. And instead of processing it, they take it on. So the senior leaders, expectations and fear about where the company is going, the middle manager starts to wear that. The lower level employees, anxiety and frustration about where their career is going, the middle manager is absorbing that. And this is now at the same time of having to hit numbers and hit metrics and make sure that they're getting the team to do what they need the team to do. So middle managers end up being a ball of frustration and anxiety. The second problem is their performing confidence. As a middle manager, you don't want to appear incompetent to those above or those below you. So rather than say, I don't know or I don't have the answer, they wear the mask and they pretend to know what they're talking about, even if they don't. Because they don't want to appear incompetent to the person who signs their checks and determines whether or not they get the next promotion. And they don't want to appear incompetent to the people that they're tasked with leading, because then there's a fear of losing respect. But all that does is it erodes trust in both directions. People know when you're BSing them. People know when you're not being real. They know when you are faking it. And sometimes the most humble and honest thing you can do is say, I don't know, let me get back to you. Or I haven't quite figured that out. Or I'm working through it. And then what I find most often happens is people come around you. They show you the grace and empathy you're looking for. And they help you to do your job to the best of your ability. But if what you're doing as a middle manager is just performing confidence, pretending to have it all together, people see right through it. And then when you fail or you fall, they don't have grace and empathy for you. The third thing is I find middle managers going undeveloped. They spend a lot of time, good ones, I'll say, pouring into and developing others. But then they stop developing themselves. They stop becoming learners. They stop with their own skill acquisition and with their own development. But middle managers have to remain committed to their own growth. They have to continue to develop to be the best version of themselves so they can trickle that down onto others, but also so that those above them can look and say, yeah, this person's getting better and better, and we gotta move them up. So what does good leadership from the middle look like? I think middle management is less about authority and more about clarity. Clarity about what you control, about where your influence lies, clarity about what you have to let go of. I say this all the time. You control what you can control. If it's out of your scope, it's out of your scope. And this is a lesson not just for work, but for all of life. So often we find ourselves as just big balls of anxiety and frustration and rumination over things that we're really powerless to deal with, that we're powerless to change. And I think when we recognize that, there's a weight that comes off of our shoulders that allows us to just live. So here are 3 things that I want you, the middle manager, to do. The first is I want you to name the pressure that you're carrying. The people above you and the people below you need to hear it. Hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm going through right now. Help me out. The second is advocate upward. But you advocate upward with specificity that doesn't sound like complaining. Oh, I'm so frustrated about all of these different projects and deadlines. No, I'm frustrated that this project needs to be completed by this date, but I'm under-resourced in this area and therefore I cannot get it done. When you advocate upward with specificity, it doesn't come off as complaining. You are naming the problem and you're bringing real clarity around what needs to be done. The third thing I want you to do, middle manager, is keep your team focused without pretending that the hard stuff doesn't exist. The worst thing you can do for a person who is frustrated or anxious or anything is dismiss their feelings. It's telling them that they don't feel what they feel, that what they're going through isn't what they're going through. That is the fastest way to lose people. But you also have a job. And that job is to keep people in line and on task. And you can do that while saying, yeah, this sucks right now. or this is really hard. I know you're under-resourced, but we can do this. These are the keys to middle management. I think a generationally fluent workspace, it's going to be built on respecting the expertise of the person who's doing the translation work daily. The person who has to look at what's above them and what's below them and get them to work together fluently and congruently and with as little mess as possible. Senior leaders, they set the direction. They set the atmosphere. Culture trickles down. But that culture is going to pass through the middle manager who makes it real. That makes the middle manager one of the most important people in the building. If you're a middle manager and you're watching this, and maybe you feel the weight of what you're carrying and like no one understands, I'm here to help. I'm here to offer you coaching and support. I'm writing posts, I'm making videos, but I can also give you some of that one-on-one time that you need to process where you are and what you're going through. If you're interested, check my website, hit the links, all of the things. Let me be the coach that helps you be the best middle manager you can be, but also prepares you to move up to the next level. Now, maybe you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, CJ, I'm a middle manager, but I'm not in the mood to do all of this translation work. I'm not in the mood to develop the soft skills. I just need to take whatever's given to me and I need to get those people over there to understand it. All right, you do that. And let me know how it works out for you, because you might get some tasks done, but I'm gonna guess that you're stagnating your growth. But who am I to speak into this? Just some guy in his basement making videos and writing a bunch of words, hoping to help you be the best version of yourself. But in the end, what do I know? I'm just some guy from Brooklyn.